everybody. Let's call the meeting of the Rules and Regs Committee, first one, I guess, with new folks for this month. I guess the first thing we need to do, even though there are only two of us here that would have been at the meeting, but we need to approve the meeting minutes from. Okay. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Yeah, she does a good job of doing the minutes anyway. I'm not worried at all. And the next thing, I'm sitting here, even though it's not my place right now, the next thing we need to do is select a chairperson. Thank you. I guess. I really enjoy this, so I appreciate it very much. I would like to just continue. You guys are going to be probably a little worried about it, but I've got some ideas. Okay? Okay. Go ahead and vote. Sorry. Call for the vote. Thank you. I can't vote for myself, but I guess I can. All right. We only have one thing to do today, is to review policy number 5.03, guest policies. Take it away, Tom.
Okay, so this is the guest policy, and we took the opportunity to make some grammar changes to this one and just some phrasing. So not that big a deal. The main changes that we're looking at is, here is the original, I don't know how I did that. Okay, didn't know that you could do that. Here's the original where it talks about participant guests are those guests who participate in special events at association amenities. So what happens every year is we go to the committees. It's typically the Recreation Committee and the Lakes Committee. And if we're going to have an event that has non-members, we're going to go to those committees and ask their permission. Now, most of the time, these events are charity-oriented, kid-oriented, youth-oriented, and so forth. But we thought that based upon some suggestions that we received, we thought we might add some additional parameters to really make it a lot clearer. Some of this wording is recycled from the previous, but you'll see that we added quite a bit. Two sentences down, proposed events under consideration for approval by the board or the joint advisory committee must first be discussed in the open meeting to members with no vote taken until the following month's meeting. The delay in taking a vote until the following month's meeting will provide members with sufficient time to voice their opinion regarding the proposed event. So what we were thinking of is we do this in January. Right now we do it in January. It comes up and maybe it's approved and maybe someone has an objection, but they don't necessarily know that they should attend in January, and this gives them an entire month to go, hey, I saw the rec committee and I don't agree with this, so now I have a month's notice to come to the next meeting and voice their concern. So and a month is reasonable. Then the second thing we came up with is association joint advisory committees are encouraged to consider all events for the year each January, so we enumerated that, although exceptions can be made due to necessity. So most of the time it's in January because we're setting our calendar, but sometimes it comes up afterwards. Then association joint advisory committees are encouraged to primarily consider events which benefit charities, youth, and then events that give back to the community. So really making it clear what we're trying to benefit. For example, you have the Kids Fishing Derby, which we hold at Metfield each year, and that event, I mean, probably 80–90% of the participants are residents or resident kids or grandkids. But it has to be open to the community, the public, because we're receiving the fish for free from the state. And if we were to limit only to Bella Vista residents, then we couldn't get the fish for free. So that's a good example. It's a youth event, and it clearly benefits the community. So that's a good example. We do shooting events at the Skeet and Trap range. You know, the Cancer Challenge, that's clearly benefiting, it's a charity, it's benefiting our community. So we want to make sure that we focus in on that. But we did give some latitude to the committee where we said events that give back to the community. So that's pretty broad. We just don't want to get into abuse or anything like that. Then participant guests are not required to have a guest pass, but may have to pay the current rates as applicable. So sometimes we have at events, but they still have to pay something to get in. Not always. I mean, we don't, for the fishing derby, we don't charge for that, but some of them we do. And then we added just recently, the board retains the authority to override any decision made by a joint advisory committee. So if the joint advisory committee were to overreach, step out of bounds, however you want to phrase it, this gives the board the authority to go, hey, we didn't agree with that decision. We want you to rein it back, and we don't agree with that. So I think this modification adds a lot of clarity and strength to this policy. So we're recommending it.
I just want to say that last line is important, even though that we're going to generally, I don't think there's been any event that the board members that I've heard from have ever said, I don't like that idea, we should let them do that. I just think it's important as elected people, we need to be able to have final say on anything since committees are appointed.
It seemed like, Deborah, maybe you had a concern with one of the events that came up, I don't want to say out of the blue, but didn't give people a month to comment on, and so I think this addresses that concern. I don't remember exactly which event it was, but it was a good point that it was something that you guys hadn't seen yet or hadn't remembered.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a fishing tournament.
Was it the carp?
Carp one.
Yeah, I think it's important that our community is able to hear what the plans may be. They may be aware of something that maybe we just don't have our eyes on. And I think the same thing goes for the board retaining authority to override, because it's possible that a committee may have too narrow of a focus, or again, not be aware of something that's going on that could be counterproductive to our members. So I think both these are really good.
And as I indicated, the other changes we made, we accompanied guests. So our main goal was to work on the charitable youth events, but since we were looking at 5.03, we were like, okay, let's make sure we look at the entire policy, and that's why we were doing some grammar cleanup and so forth. But we also tried to make it, this one, easier. So this is for accompanied guests. In some situations, sponsored guests must be accompanied by a member to enjoy association amenities without requirement of paying a guest fee. For these situations, a guest is accompanied by a member so long as the guest is, and then we added, within reasonable proximity of the member. We felt that it was clearer than maintains visual and auditory contact with the member at all times. That just
A little stuffy.
a little stuffy, a little like auditory. Who talks that way? You know, attorneys. Okay, then we know who to blame then. So reasonable proximity. I mean, you know, many times this has to do with being on the lake, and you know, if you're within a, you know, maybe it's your family is out and you're all in kayaks, and okay, well, they got to be reasonably close. They, you know, If you're in the same cove, yeah, you're reasonably close, so. Well, it goes with what we were working on last year and into the year before, which is, let's not use legalese on these policies. Let's try and make them easier for the average person to understand, and I don't think visual and auditory is horrible, but reasonable proximity is a lot easier to understand and accept, so.
You don't have to make me feel better, Tom.
Wasn't my goal.
If that worked out, it's all right though.
I'm good. And that's it. The rest were just knick-knack changes.
So any other discussion before we take a vote to pass it on to the board? No?
I'll move that we adopt the proposed changes to policy 5.03.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, move it forward.
That's all I had.
That's all
for
you had. We don't have any open forum issues, right, at all? Okay, I just have something that I'd like for us to look at, and a couple of questions. I know we did a lot of work on this last year, and even the year before, but especially last year. And I took the time this morning, because I was watching paint dry, so I needed something to do. I copied all of this off of the website.
Okay.
And my question is, I just want to make sure that the most current policy is actually out there. It probably is, but I want to make sure that any of that work we did last year is technically on the website with the date that shows when we updated it.
I'm not saying that we couldn't have missed something, but we try and update it as quickly as possible with the new policy. I personally do not keep a paper policy.
Right.
Paper copy of the policy.
Right.
Of any of the policies. I
Go to the
always
website.
go to the website, because that's what our membership is going to do. They're going to go to the website too, and I don't need to kill a bunch of trees by having it and then throwing out old versions, putting in new versions.
And I don't normally, but again, I was watching paint dry, so I needed something to do today.
Right.
I just want to make sure, absolutely sure. And then the next thing, because we got a couple of new members and actually new board members, I think it'd be really great if we were to look back when we have some time. And there are some policies that we probably skipped over and said, that's okay, we don't need to look at that one. Could we at least kind of review some of those and see if you think that it might be time to update? Or is it possible, if we were to review something, to actually put a date on there, reviewed? Again, even if we don't make any changes, is there any way to indicate that we looked at that? For instance, I'm just going to turn to one real quick. It doesn't really matter. I'll probably just get the ones that we worked on last year. But there are a few in here that haven't been looked at in a while. And I bet, if I had to bet, that you guys actually looked at those and said that one's good. But I'd still like to make absolutely sure.
When we did the comprehensive review last year, before that, we did look at every single policy, and we actually got rid of
we eliminated some
policies.
Yes.
And we did some major updates, but the policies should be living, meaning, we have to be willing to change them over time. For a variety of different reasons. So I don't have a problem if we want to revisit them.
I'm not saying you two do right now. I'm just asking us to kind of look at them and see, because it's an education for us to review what we think we know, and for the new folks to actually get familiar with what some policies say. That's all I'm saying. I don't think there's anything right now you guys need to do.
I think JB's giving us homework.
I think so.
Well, I mean, hey, I tried putting this under my pillow and downloading it, but it didn't work. And it doesn't hurt to stay on top of
If you're
it.
gonna do that, then I'm gonna speak for Doug here, I think.
Uh-oh,
So I'm gonna throw in a whereas in there somewhere.
okay,
But encourage you to start with the declaration, the hierarchy. You know, you start at the top, the declaration, you go to the articles,
Yeah.
bylaws, then policies. We encourage you to follow in that order. But we're always willing to look at any policy, if things have changed, if there's court cases, what
Yes.
have you,
yes,
customs change, but we're always willing to look at anything. And I'm not 100% convinced that we didn't get all the legalese out of every policy because, you know,
whereas, you haven't said whereas yet.
I know.
Okay.
So if you come across some policies that you feel we need to look at, I think that's great. You know, what we have done in the past is kind of, they divided the policies and the documentation, you know, so, okay, well, we have 4 committee members, we're gonna go, you take the first
I just,
order and
yeah.
whatever you wanna do.
No, I don't think it needs to be as
Okay.
thorough as you're saying. I just want us to be, we're supposed to be the people that know this the best.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, if you have, and also I noticed on the website, under the declarations and the covenants and all of that, there are 2 things. There's the one with the red that shows the notes, but I don't see anywhere where it says notes were added, or is that even, you know, when was that added? Was it added in 1965, or was it added last year?
Yes,
Yeah,
it doesn't have a date on it.
not that I found.
I know that one is,
Yeah,
the policies themselves, I have a Word document that I use to update. So whenever there's changes here, I update it on the Word document, and then I print it to PDF and then give it to Jessica, and that's what she uploads to the website.
yeah,
So there's no Word document of the declaration, but we could,
maybe
I
put
can
a
figure
date
out
on it.
I can figure out how to get a date on there that says this, just like these,
Yeah.
that shows the date that it was last revised.
Yeah, because we did a lot of, did a lot of work on this last year. And I just want, if somebody goes out and looks at it on the website, to know that it hadn't been lying around since 1965, that we have added some clarification. That's
Well, and
all.
it'll remind us, I mean, a lot of what we tried to do with the red notations
Yeah,
was to, okay, we can't change the declaration because change the declaration is near impossible.
yeah,
But what we try to do is explain what all these provisions mean and address questions that Doug and I have fielded over the years, and confusion that, you know, because it's a very hard document to read. And those will change. And so, you know, fast forward 5 years from now, maybe it's, oh geez, last time we went through the red section was 5 years ago. Maybe we need to look at it again
Yeah.
because things changed since then. So
that's right.
I agree completely.
Okay, I noticed that the bylaws actually have a little thing in front. These bylaws are approved November the 21st, 2024, supersedes all blah, blah, blah. That one's covered. But the other 2, if there's any way we could get a date on
I
it.
think we didn't do that because the bylaws are actually,
Yeah,
we're changing it.
yeah,
Where with the declaration,
yeah,
we're really not changing it.
No. clarify.
That's why we have 2 versions, one version with the red and one version without. And it explicitly says, if you don't like the one with the notes, go to the other one because that's the official version. So we try to, thread the needle on that because you can't change the declaration, but we're trying to make it easier for people to understand.
You know,
Right.
go ahead.
Well, I just, because we're not changing anything.
No.
We don't need dates on every little
No,
line item.
just at the top,
Maybe just a notation
at the
that,
top.
in
Yeah,
addition to what you've already put, is this clarification was provided such and such date.
Yeah.
Would that be simple to do?
Yeah.
And then, like say 5 years from now, well, we reviewed it on such and such date.
I think that's a good idea. And I don't think that requires a vote of the board because we're just going to add.
all
a
you're gonna
date
do is
to it.
add the date that we did the work. You
Yeah.
did the work. We voted on it. So, my,
To your first question that you brought up, was there something specific that you were referencing that you didn't feel like was there, or you were saying
no, I
in
just
case?
want us,
Okay.
my goal for this year, now that I'm sitting here again and from last year, is that leave this better for the next person that has to look at it. That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Keep it up to date and make it crystal clear, so there's absolutely no, well, people are gonna object or can be because they don't understand, but make it so clear, thank you for doing that, that we can stand behind it.
I would like us, this, and so I had lunch with someone today, and I won't reference their name, it's not important, but found out that the Department of Health just recently approved the use of a new type of septic system.
Oh my
A
goodness.
smaller size septic system. So I think it may be a good idea for Doug and I to do a little research on this new thing and whether it would have an impact on that section of our policies, the use of common property, because we might be able to say, no, we're not going to let you traverse common property. You need to first explore this new option.
Excellent.
And there is a vendor, they're in Little Rock, but there is a vendor in the state that can install this new type of system that takes up basically the side, it's what I was told, and so I could be wrong, it's basically the size of like a generator.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And so quite a bit smaller. So I think that's something that I just found out about no more than a half hour ago. I haven't done any research. I could be wrong, but I think it's something we probably should want to look at, and it may result in us needing to change some of our policies.
Okay, well, that can be our first look, and we can kind of help you look.
To that, would it be just something as simple as possibly say all applicants are required to be exhausted all legal remedies that are allowed by the state, or something to that regard? Just be a catch-all in case this isn't. If they come up with something else 3 years down the road,
Yeah.
you're not
They probably
reading,
will.
just
I think it's something we want to look at, because when I heard about that, I was like, wow, we wouldn't wait for this for a long time.
Yeah, no
This would-
kidding.
This would potentially solve a lot of problems, because there's always been a lot of concern about residents using common property for their traversing or putting leach fields, and we know that there's some areas where the common property is so limited behind the house that if multiple houses lost their septic system, there's just not enough common property behind the house. I mean, in some cases it's like 20 foot wide. That's it. That's nothing. So I think it might be something worth looking into.
I think that's great, and that along with the push, and it'll be a long push, to get as many people as possible on sewer instead of septic. You know, maybe those two things together make it easier for everybody. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, you know, they're adding sewer connections every single year, but if you if you looked at the percentage of homes in Bella Vista that are on sewer, I guarantee it's going down because of the dramatic growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're kind of sliding back.
Well, they're adding, but the
But we're
percentage is way going
right,
the other
right,
direction. So,
right. But I know that's a big concern for the city as well, is to try to get, even though it's costly, to convert.
yeah.
So, anyway, okay. So is everybody okay with kind of just doing a little bit of homework? Little bit of homework? Okay. If there's nothing else, could we plan on meeting again next month? Even if we come up with nothing, even if we come up with, I really like it the way it is, let's put a date on it and put it away. And you guys can tell us more about this new little generator-sized septic tank. Okay? Good? All right. If nothing else, let's adjourn.